Okay, are we online?
We are ready.
Okay, so welcome to Jenkins Online Meetup. Today we are going to talk about Google Summer of Code, and students of Jenkins projects are going to make their presentations and talk about their projects. And of course, there will be cool demos related to Jenkins and its plugins. Um, so if you haven't heard about the Jenkins Online Meetup before, it's a kind of venue where we can discuss different topics regarding Jenkins usage, like case diaries, work stories, and also we can discuss development aspects of Jenkins. You can find the meetup using the following link, and of course you can also join local Jenkins area meetups, which we have in many cities now. So, as I said before, today we are talking about Google Summer of Code. As you probably know, Google Summer of Code is a worldwide program which allows many students to contribute to open source projects and to get a kind of stipend for these contributions. And on the other hand, open source organizations can get contributors and they can bound them to a community, and it's a win-win project for all sides, including Google, of course. So on this year, Jenkins participates in Google Summer of Code. This is the first year where we attend this program. On this year, we have about 9 project ideas for different areas, including Jenkins, core plugins, backend infrastructure. Now we try to evolve Jenkins in many directions, as you may see in ongoing conversations and activities in the community. We had about 15 mentors and 3 org admins who helped students to prepare their proposals and to go through their projects. There were also 3 org admins which helped to handle all administrative questions. On this year, we got dozens of applications, and there was a hard review process. So actually, we accepted about 5% of applications, and finally, we've got 5 students working on our projects. So on this year, Google Summer of Code included 3 months of coding and also a period of community bonding. The coding period ended on the previous week. So now all projects are complete, and we just discuss the final state of the projects, and students are going to present this final state. After that, we are going to have a retrospective, and of course, we want to participate on the next year and at the next events like Jenkins Contributor Summit at Jenkins World. We are going to discuss what to do next with Google Summer of Code. Just to provide some statistics, we had 5 projects. 1 project was related to Jenkins core improvements, 2 projects were related to plugin ecosystem like external workspace manager and support core plugin improvements, and there were also 2 projects related to backend infrastructure, for example, documentation publishing on websites and big data analysis for plugin installations, etc. After midterm evaluation, we had 2 projects left, and today students are going to present their projects. Let me switch to the student slide. Actually, we are going to start from the presentation by Alexandru Samai, who will talk about external workspace manager for pipeline, and then Samad will talk about Jenkins Web improvements in core, and also about help editor plugin, which has been developed during his project. All sessions will take less than 1 hour. We will start from presentation by student, and then we will have a long session of questions and other discussions. If you watch the presentation via YouTube, you can ask questions using YouTube Q&A tool. You can find it on the tab on the left side. and you can ask your own questions or vote for other questions, and after presentations we will try to answer them. And also there is a RC Jenkins channel. We are going to monitor it, and we will also cover questions coming from this channel. That's all from me. So I'm going to hand over presentation to someone.
Actually,
not to someone.
Before we move on, there's actually already one question. So I think for Oleg.
Just a second.
I'll read it. Is there any stability-related projects?
On this year, no. Actually, we had several proposals related to stability improvements. For example, a rework of fingerprint engine. And of course, there are other projects we would like to consider. But in the case of Google Summer of Code, we didn't touch such areas because they are just too complex for 3 months projects. If you're interested about stability projects in general, come to Jenkins Contributor Summit at Jenkins World or join the Jenkins Developer mailing list. There are several activities related to this topic now.
All right. So with that, Alex?
Yes, so can I start sharing my screen?
Sure.
Okay. Please let me know if you see my screen and tell me when I can start.
Yeah, you're good to go.
Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Alexandru Șomai, and my Google Summer of Code project is called External Workspace Manager Plugin. My mentors for this project are Oleg and Martin. A few words about myself. This summer I've got my master's degree in software engineering at Babeș-Bolyai University of Cluj-Napoca, Romania. I have more than 2 years experience in software development achieved while working at different companies. I mostly enjoy coding in Java, Groovy, and JavaScript. And the Java frameworks that I'm interested in are Spring and Hibernate. And as build tools and continuous integration, I'm mostly using Maven with Jenkins. So one of the problems that some Jenkins users are facing is that it is quite difficult to share and reuse the same workspace for multiple jobs. One use case may be when running parallel testing across nodes. An alternative is to copy them from one node to another, but as we know, some builds may have large files and copying them may prove to be slow. Of course, there are also some other possible solutions like stashing and unstashing pre-made artifacts, but this can be used only in a single pipeline. By using the copy artifacts plugin, as I said earlier, this can be slow, or the user can go for some advanced job settings, but in this case, the workspace management logic has to be implemented by the user. So the alternative that I'm proposing to this problem is the External Workspace Manager plugin. The main focus is on pipeline jobs, and it facilitates workspace share and reuse across multiple jobs that are running on different nodes. So the concept is that you can have a build pipeline, and on this pipeline you can have multiple nodes, one for building, one for testing, the other one for staging, and all these nodes have to be mounted on a disk pool in which we will have our common workspace. But before actually using the plugin, the user needs to set up his infrastructure. So meaning that from the Jenkins master and from each node, there has to be set mounting points to the disks. These mounting pads will be defined in the Jenkins configs that the plugin exposes. Now I'll like to talk about the work that has been done to achieve this project. So the main component is the External Workspace Manager plugin, and this plugin also depends on other plugins from the ecosystem. First one being the Run Selector plugin, which is also a new project that I have created, and it's inherited from the copy artifact plugin. Mainly what I did was to decouple the build selector extension point, and I have added symbol support to it. Then we have the workspace cleanup plugin, to which I have added pipeline support, and the job restrictions plugin, to which I have added some minor improvements. Then also my plugin has acceptance tests written, and I have provided several pipeline examples. Okay, now I'd like to talk about the basic features that this plugin has. So firstly, the user can configure his disks in the Jenkins global config and in the nodes. By using it, you can reuse the same workspace in the same pipeline job, or you can reuse it even in multiple pipeline jobs. And of course, it works on both Unix and Windows systems. Now we are looking at global config for this plugin. I'm starting with disk pool definition, which has a disk pool ID, a display name, and a description. Then the other three parameters, I'll explain them later, each of them. And in this disk pool, I have two disk entries defined, each of them having a disk ID, display name, master mount point. This is the mounting point from the Jenkins master to the disk. And physical path on disk. This is an optional parameter, but it's used for workspace path computation on the disk. I'll explain it later on. And also we can provide optionally some disk information, but again, I'll show you later. Next, let's have a look at the node configs. So on the left, I have node 1 config. This one is labeled Linux. And in the external workspace node property, we have to reference the disk pool ID to the Jenkins global config. And also we have to reference each disk ID. And what's mandatory here is the local root path parameter. This one is the mounting point from the node to the actual disk. Next, we are looking at a second node config. This one is labeled test. And again, we have defined the mounting point from the node to the disk. And based on this parameter, we can assume that the node is a Windows node. Okay, now let's have a look at the first example in the pipeline job. So what I'm trying to achieve here is that on one node labeled Linux, I'll clone the project and build it by skipping the tests. And then on the other node labeled test, I'll just perform the testing by reusing the same workspace as before. So firstly, I'm calling the XWS allocate step by providing the disk pool ID parameter. This step will allocate a disk from the disk pool, and on that disk it will allocate a workspace. With the object returned by it, I will pass it as input to the XWS step. The XWS step will compute the complete workspace path starting from the node to the actual workspace on the disk. So by this, I have reused my workspace in the same pipeline job. Next, I'd like to show you the concept of reusing the workspace in two different pipeline jobs. So the concept is that in the upstream job, we can allocate the workspace, build the project, and lastly, we trigger the downstream job. In the downstream, we will make use of the run selector plugin to select the triggering build, allocate from the upstream, and perform testing. Now let's have a look at the pipeline examples for this. In the upstream job, there are no changes in the external workspace commands, but lastly, I'm just triggering the downstream build by calling the build step. Next, in the downstream job, I am using the select run step from the run selector plugin, and I provide the name, the job name of the upstream job, and the selector. In this case, I'm using triggering selector, which chooses the upstream build that triggered this downstream job. Of course, there are also many other selectors available. They are documented in the run selector plugin documentation page. Next, what I have to do is to call the XWS allocate step by providing the selected run parameter. So this step will know to allocate the same workspace as used by the upstream job. Next, I'd like to show you a demo of these two examples. So I have here my Jenkins instance. I'll quickly go to the global config. Here in the global config, I have my disk pool defined with 2 Linux disks. And in the disks, I am providing the mounting point from the Jenkins master to the disk and the physical path on disk. So as I said, this parameter is used for path computation on the disk. So the path is computed by default, starting with the physical path on this parameter, followed by the job name and the build number. But I'll show you later this can be overridden. Okay, so I'll save this. And let's have a quick look at the node configs. I have here one node labeled build and Linux, and in the config, I'm defining the mounting point from this node to the disk. Then I have a second node. This one is labeled Linux and test, and again I have similar external workspace node properties configs. Okay, now I'd like to show you the first example. If we look at the script of this, I'll zoom in a bit. Okay, so basically the pipeline script is similar with the one that you have seen on the slides, and just allocating and calling the XWS tab on different nodes. So I'll perform a cloning of the project on one node, building it, and on another node I'll just test it. So I'll save this, and I'll trigger the build now, triggering the build. And now let's have a look in the console output. So in the console output, we get messages saying that the selected disk ID, in my case, is disk 2 from that disk pool. And the workspace path on the disk follows the pattern, starting with the physical path on disk, to which is appended the current name of the job and the build number. Then when it's running on the first node, we get message saying running in, and this is the mounting point from the node to the disk, to which is appended the workspace path on that disk. Yeah, so the build has succeeded. Next, it runs on the second node, and again we get similar messages running in and the mounting point from the node to the disk and the path. Okay, so the build has succeeded. What I want to show you next is that on the left we have the external workspaces view. So I'll click on it, and we can see here the used disk pool, the allocated disk, the path on the disk, and here we have the complete workspace path. So by going to this path, we can view the contents of the workspace, but we have to be on the Jenkins master machine. So I'll copy this, and I'll go to my terminal, and if I change directory to this one, I can browse the contents of my workspace in here. What I'd like to mention is that currently I do have a work in progress to integrate the workspace browsing feature here in the browser. So just let me show you a snapshot of that work. I'll move now to my Jenkins development. So the idea is that for one job that has run, here I have this one. By clicking on the external workspaces and you go to the external workspace link, you can actually view the workspace here in the browser. Yeah, but as I said, this is work in progress. I still have some technical difficulties, but it will be out in the next release. Okay, so let's move back to our Jenkins. Now I'd like to show you the second example with one upstream and one downstream job. So in the upstream job, the pipeline script looks the same as on the slides, just allocating and triggering the downstream build. And save this. And in the downstream, if we have a look in the script, we are calling the select run parameter with the selector triggering in this case. But as I said, for example, here you can also use the build number selector, for example, and have an upstream build number. And in this case, you can actually pass this parameter from the upstream job to the downstream job and many other selectors. So I'll just revert this. And at the XWS allocate step, I'm passing the selected run parameter. Also, before running this example, I'd like to show you that in the pipeline syntax, for example, for the XWS allocate step, you have here the available parameters, and each of them have help files with examples and explanations. Also, for the XWS step, you have here a basic usage example. Okay, now let's move back. I'll save this. And now I will trigger the upstream job. Triggering the upstream. Let's have a look in the console output. So we get similar messages, the path on the disk. This time it uses the full name of the job. So in our case, the job was located in the upstream folder, so it uses the full name. Then again, running in, and at the end, it should start triggering the downstream job as soon as the build finishes. Okay, so the build has succeeded. It triggers the downstream job, and in the downstream job, we'll have a look at the console output. So in the console, we see that it selected the build number 21 from the upstream, and the path on the disk is the same as in the upstream job. We can see that it follows that name, and again, if we go to the external workspaces, we can, if we want to, we can browse the workspace like this. Okay, and in the meantime, the build has succeeded. Okay, this was my first demo. Let's move on. I'd like to talk about some advanced features that the plugin has. So by using it, you can also benefit from workspace cleanup. And as I said, you can override the custom workspace path that is computed on the disk. You can do this overriding either in the Jenkins global config or in the pipeline script. In this example, I'm showing you the pipeline script for the workspace cleanup. At the end of the script, in the finally block, I'm calling the WS cleanup step with clean when failure parameter set to false. So in this case, the workspace will be cleaned only if the build succeeds. If the build fails, the workspace will not be cleaned. And next, regarding the custom workspace path, this is the example in which it overrides the workspace path in the pipeline script. So I want my workspace to be computed on the disk, starting with the job name, followed by the PR number. This is a build parameter, and to which is appended the current build number. Next, what I have to do, this string, I have to pass it as parameter. I have to provide the path parameter to the XWS allocate step. Okay, now I'd like to show you a demo of these two examples. So firstly, regarding the workspace cleanup, in the pipeline script, so the script is similar as on the slides, and at the end, I'm calling the WS cleanup step. So if my build will succeed, the workspace has to be cleaned. So I'll save this and triggering the build now. And we're looking in the console output. Okay, so we will have to wait for this build to complete, because only at the end of the build the workspace will be deleted. So right now it's checking out the project. Yeah, in the meantime we can see similar messages in the logs, the disk ID allocated, disk pool, and the path on the disk. Okay, so the build has succeeded. It's running the tests now, and it succeeded. And we can see a message saying workspace cleanup, deleting project workspace, done. So if we try to browse this workspace, if I'll change directly to this, clear it, cd, we get message saying no such file or directory, so the workspace has been deleted. Next, regarding providing custom workspace path on the disk. So firstly, I said that in the Jenkins global config, you can provide here the workspace path template parameter, and in the help file you have here some basic example of how you can use it. Right now I will show you the demo in which it is overridden in the pipeline script. So let's have a look in the pipeline. So I have here the PR number, which is the build parameter, and the path starts with the job name, PR number, and build number, and I'm providing the path parameter. Okay, so I'll save this and trigger the build. I'll provide 20 as this parameter, building. So in the console output, we get the message saying that the path on the disk is the current name of the job. This is the PR number, which was 20, and then the current build number, that is 12. Okay, and in the meantime the build will succeed. So this was my second demo, and now I'd like to speak about even more features that the plugin has. Firstly, you can also apply some disk pool restrictions if you'd like to, and it comes up with flexible disk allocation strategies. So for example, disk pool restrictions, it has to be defined in the Jenkins global config, and this disk pool, I'm restricting it to be allocated only if in the job in which it is allocated, only if that job is triggered by this user, or if the job is located in a specific folder. So this is how you can apply restrictions. Next, the next example is about disk allocation strategy. So you can define one disk allocation strategy as a default one in the Jenkins global config, but this can be overridden in the pipeline script by providing the strategy parameter. So what I'm showing you here is that I'm saying allocate the disk with the highest read speed. Also, I can provide, this parameter is optional, the estimated workspace size, but it has to be set in megabytes. So in this case, I'm saying that my workspace on the disk may have an estimated workspace size of 100 megabytes. So in this case, if I provide this parameter, the step will try to allocate that disk only if it has at least 100 megabytes usable space. If it doesn't have that much usable space, the job will fail. And now I'll show you a demo of these two examples. So regarding the job restrictions, the disk pool restrictions in the global config, I am applying for this disk pool a restriction that only started by this user, which is my user. So I'll save this, and I'll have to log in with my user. Logging in, and if I will try to build this, it will succeed because I am able to allocate that from that disk pool. But now let's log out and I will log in with another user. So this user is not allowed to allocate that disk pool. So if I trigger this, I'll get an error message saying that the disk pool identified by the ID is not accessible due to the applied restriction. Okay, so this was about disk pool restrictions. I'll log out. Next, I'll revert the restriction change. No restriction, okay. And as I said, you can provide disk allocation strategy. The default one can be set here in the Jenkins global config. And for this, you have to also specify, for example, if you want to choose the disk with the highest read speed or write speeds, actually you will need to provide some custom disk information. We need to specify which are the read and write speeds of the disks. So for this one, I'm saying that it has a read speed of 10 megabytes, a write speed of 5. And for my second disk, I'm saying it has a smaller read speed, let's say 7, and a higher write speed, 15. So my first disk has a higher read speed of 10. Okay, so I'll save this as it is. And if I go to the script of this job, as a strategy, I want to provide the strategy, select me the disk with the fastest read speed. So in my use case, that disk should be disk number 1. So if I save this, and I'm triggering the build now, let's have a look in the console output. So we get the message saying that the allocation strategy used is select the disk with highest read speed, and that disk is disk 1. Okay, regarding the estimated workspace size, if I say here that my workspace size may have 100 gigabytes, so as I said, this parameter has to be set in megabytes, so I'm saying it has 100 gigabytes. So the step will try to allocate the disk only if it has that much usable space. So in my setup, I don't have the disks with that much usable space, so the job will fail. Let's save this and I'll trigger the job. And if we look in the console output, we get the error message saying that it couldn't find any disk with at least that much usable space. Okay, so this was my third demo. Now I'd like to talk about the completed work summary that I did during Google Summer of Code, but I'm reporting only for coding period phase 2. For phase 1, I have reported in the midterm presentation. So I have grouped my work in phase 2 epic. What I did was to decouple the build selector extension point from the copy artifact plugin. I have made workspace cleanup plugin to be pipeline compatible. I have implemented custom workspace path feature. I have added disk pool restrictions, a couple of extension points. I have also written unit and acceptance tests. My repository has a Jenkins file, so it builds on ci.jenkins.io. And more details about the work that I did you can find on the link that is on this page. Also, I'd like to announce that I have performed a stable release of this plugin. So it is now available in the Jenkins main update center. And there are some usage guidelines on the plugin's README page. This is the documentation page. So you can see here, starting with some setup examples, how to set up the plugin before actually using it. Then we have some pipeline examples, basic ones with explanations. Again, pipeline examples with workspace cleanup. Custom workspace path, how to provide it, again with explanations. Disk pool restrictions, some basic examples, and disk allocation strategies with basic examples. Okay, let's move on. Regarding the community interaction, I had public meetings with my mentors. I have posted status updates on the mailing list. We had discussions on the public chats, and I have posted a few blog posts. Okay, in the future, I have grouped my future plan work in the phase 3 epic. So the first item is to have the workspace browsing feature, which I've shown you earlier how it works. Then I'm planning to integrate fingerprints. So by this, the user will be able to see his workspace in which other jobs was used and on which specific builds from that jobs was used. Then a nice to have feature is to integrate the plugin with at least one external disk providers, for example, with Google Cloud Storage. Here is a summary of a link summary. I have here the link to my repositories, the Gitter chat link, some blog posts, and the epics. Also, I'd like to announce that I'll be presenting my plugin at Jenkins World. So my presentation will take place on the second day, on Wednesday, on September 14. And also I'll hold a demo of this plugin at the Jenkins community booth. And after the demo, I'll be around for questions and discussions. So see you there. So before starting the Q&A session, I'd like to mention that if you have any other questions after this meeting, you can join the discussions on the Gitter chat. So thank you for your attention. I think that we can start the Q&A now.
All right. So let's see. I should probably read the question, right?
Yes.
Or you can do it up to you.
So the first one is triggering peer entities. Is that a step? Is that why you need peer entities?
Yes. So the question was if triggering is actually another step and if I actually need it.
Yeah, so why do you use brackets? What does it mean? Maybe you want to share your screen just to show example again, because not everybody remembers what was this code.
Sure, I'll do that. Just let me go to that slide and I will share my screen again.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm sharing the screen. So the question was about the triggering selector and why I'm using brackets.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, this is from the because of the plugin development. Actually, I haven't tried without the brackets, but I don't think it will actually work. I'm not sure. Because I think this is the syntax that it has to be.
Yeah, so actually, selector is an extension point, and it takes data from run selector plugin, which actually uses symbol to define different implementations of extension point.
Yeah, this can be also written a bit more uglier using the class. Maybe this one is a bit more familiar to others. You can use the triggering run selector class. So this is the uglier version of the same thing.
So this is a symbol of.
Yes, it's a symbol.
Great.
Yes, I have written symbols for it.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, so did I answer this question?
Yeah, maybe you could show a list of available implementations in a run selector plugin.
Yeah, sure, I can do that.
There is documentation.
Yeah, so you can reach the documentation going from the second example from pipeline examples from my plugin, and here we have a warning message saying that you have to use the run selector plugin, and we can go to the README page, and here we have some. For example, we can select the upstream build based on its status. So this one selects the last successful build, or you can select by permalink, by build number, and this one was the triggering. Yeah, so mainly these are the main selectors that are available and can be used.
Great. So there was a related question from Jesse in IRC. This question was about using of such approach with explicit upstream definition. Because in his opinion, it would be better to just explicitly specify workspace ID or whatever to retrieve this workspace.
Yes, to specify the workspace ID to retrieve the workspace. Initially this was the design plan, and because if I know correctly, to be able to specify the workspace ID, I will need to have my plugin integrated with fingerprints, and currently I didn't do that, the integration with fingerprints, and it's a work in progress. But maybe after that integration, I can also provide an API for specifying the workspace only by the ID. But initially, this is how we have designed this plugin.
Yes, but in any case, if you just want to pass explicit specification of workspace to be used, you can pass build number of permalink to selector, and the result will be similar.
Yes, or you can do that as it is stated here on the last line.
Jesse, are you fine with this answer?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to point out that by having the downstream script call into a plugin, which then tries to guess at what the identity of the workspace should be by looking at build metadata, such as the cause of the build, that you're throwing away information that you actually had to begin with in the upstream build. So if you pass the exact location or some kind of identifier of the workspace as a build parameter, then there's no possibility of confusion between the two things happening. So, for example, if you're using replay function in pipeline, you would actually potentially be creating a different downstream build that was not triggered by an upstream build at all. And so the triggering selector wouldn't work. Whereas if you were referring to the workspace explicitly as a parameter, then that's something replay knows about and it would copy. So basically the use of build selectors makes sense in copy artifact for freestyle projects because a freestyle project can't easily have any logic inside it. So it has to rely on logic in the Jenkins plugin to make those decisions for you. Whereas if you're using pipeline, then you can sort of have everything. You can take all of the information that you have in the upstream build, and you can keep all of it and not have to try to reconstruct it in the downstream build.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but there was also another use case that I was thinking of, in which the user, for example, wants to select to use the workspace only from a specific build from the upstream. For example, he wants to use, I don't know, he doesn't goes for this triggering method, and just selects the build, a specific build from the upstream. So I don't know. I have thought that this may be a more flexible solution. Okay.
I think it's good that we have something that's comparable to what the freestyle things do, so that the people coming from there find what they're looking for. So I think there's a room for both. All right, shall we go to the next question?
Yes, I think that we can go.
And by the way, just I think it's so people can ask more questions by going to the Google Hangout event. So looking forward for more questions. So the next one is what was the hardest part of this project?
What's the
most difficult part of this project?
Oh, the most difficult part. Well, it was a bit difficult for me in the beginning to get used firstly with the plugin development because I didn't know how to develop a plugin. But yeah, I have learned, I can say pretty quickly. Then I had to get used with the pipeline script syntax because before now I have used Jenkins only mainly freestyle project or Maven projects or something like this. And then after that, I think it went pretty okay. It was very interesting to also integrate the plugin with other plugins. So I had to bring in with some contributions on other projects from the Jenkins community.
When you say interesting, I assume that means it was hard.
Yeah, you can say that.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, but on the other surprise, I was surprised how quickly Alex handled other stuff which is known to be painful. For example, acceptance test harness, unit testing, etc. Actually, all these items have been handled quickly, and it was very effective and productive to work in such way. So actually, the scope of work is pretty big, and the set of technologies studied is also big. And I think it's one of the main advantages of this project. Okay. Are there any? Oh, sorry, here I have somebody.
I would just like to thank Alex for working on this project. Like you said, it was pretty deep in code, more than I originally thought. But Alex, he did raise to the challenge, and he did dig deep into Jenkins to make this project successful. So he did a great work. Thank you, Alex.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Martin.
Yeah, I completely agree with Martin. The organization of the project was good, and all contributions made by Alex were very consistent, and I also appreciate his frequent communications within the community, not only with his mentors, but there were also conversations with other contributors, etc. And in my opinion, all these conversations were very productive. So I'm also very satisfied by the project results, and of course, thanks a lot to Alex for working on this.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Okay, so do we have any other questions regarding this project? I see nothing else left in RC, and there is also no questions in YouTube. So if there is no other questions, then we can proceed to the second presentation. And if new questions arise, we can just discuss them at the end of the meetup. So, Samad, are you ready?
Yes.
Yeah. So let me introduce Samad. He was working on the project related to Jenkins core, mostly web UI improvements, and also some additional stuff like help editor plugin. And Samad is going to present his work now.
All right.
Yes, you firstly need to share your screen.
Yes. Can you Can you see my screen?
Yeah, it's good.
Yes.
All right. Then, hello, my name is Samad, and I was working on web UI improvements and on Help Editor plugin. Yeah, quickly about me. I studied business in Moscow. I interned in 2 big tech companies and recently developed a startup website. So let's start with the initial plan of deliverables, which was presented in March. I will talk about it in more details later, but mostly it contained 3 parts. The first one is the new job creation page. The second one is job configuration page, and the third one was optional with possible UI improvements on homepage and credentials store page. So I would like to separate the work completed by today in 3 parts. First one is the changes in core. The second one is the Help Editor plugin, and the other changes that were also completed during this period. So changes in core include 2 open pull requests that are almost ready. The first one being the new job creation pop-up, and the second is the responsive job name validation. So new job creation pop-up is this is the demo. You can see that a user can create a new job now without need to reload the page. Right now, the state is that most parts are agreed by the community is ready to be merged. However, there's still an issue that hopefully soon will be resolved. However, the change is functional and implemented as intended. Then the responsive job name validation also completed by today. The user now can have more responsive experience and feedback while creating a job name, mostly when the job name matches an existing one. You can see it right away without showing this new page and slowing him down. Then the second part was the Help Editor plugin, on which I worked during the second half of the summer. So let's start with the demonstration of the plugin. So here a user goes to the job configuration page, where he will see the additional interface provided by the plugin, which allows him to create custom help, which is HTML formatted. Then he can save the help that then will be presented to all users of this Jenkins instance. So here I reload it to show that indeed the help was stored and can then be shown. So this will allow users to have more relevant and helpful information that so that they can put their custom specific information and make basically this button more useful. So this is the main structure of the plugin. So there are 2 events that happening that then trigger the AJAX requests, which then proceeds to the root action, which depending on the type of the request that was received, then accesses the HTML file and either returns the relevant help information file, the HTML file, or updates or creates the file. So here, like just to show the simple structure of the plugin that basically contains 5 files in its source, and 2 main ones are the root action Java file, which works with this file system and retrieves and creates the files, and then a JavaScript file which sends the AJAX requests and then also creates the structure of this additional field and manipulates the HTML there. Here I would like to quickly show the storage process, that the directory of the help information files is the Jenkins home. So basically in this help manager folder, the files are stored and then accessed. So here you can see that the file is received by going to the path of the directory and then accessing it by the class name, which is unique for each field, and this is how we distinguish the relevant files. Currently, the help editor plugin is released but in beta, so you can access it at Experimental Update Center. So here's the link on the blog post on Jenkins website, which is how the beta plugins can be accessed, including my own. So I would like to also talk about the other work that was completed during these 3 months, but did not fit in the previous 2 categories. So the first one is the proposal of the UI change on this new job creation page. However, the ideas were rejected and thus viewed as an experiment. The second was also an experiment of removing add description button on the home page and moving it to the manage page of the Jenkins to attempt to make the UI more cleaner. However, it was decided that the change itself is not developed and ready enough to be merged, and so also is not accepted at this point. And also, I'd like to mention that I wrote in NPM module for remodel library that was used in pop-up project. So since the Jenkins does not allow to use the jQuery in the global namespace, I created a detached version of this JS library so that it would be able to work in Jenkins just as Bootstrap has its own detached version. So I would like to now compare the planned and completed work that was initially planned in March, and then what we have now. So I would say that more than half of the proposed required parts are completed. So as I said, the main ones are the main projects on the new job creation and the help editor plugin are functional and working, and for the most part are accepted by the community. However, not completely, and I'll explain it later. And then optional parts are unfortunately were not done because of time constraints. So here's the more detailed view. So I would say that both main parts in new job creation were completed. In configuration page, there was initially also this idea of styling the configuration page, of searching with other possible ways to improve UI. However, that was quickly rejected as an idea since that was considered that working on it maybe not be very fruitful, since the UI, the global UI of the configuration page is kind of reluctant to change in terms of student contributions. Then optional changes, as I said, unfortunately were not done. For example, this homepage UI proposal also included this removing and editing this add description button, but the experiment didn't work. And finally, unfortunately, the tests were not written. The tests that were used for the plugin and the new job creation page were only standard. So this is also a part of the future work that I will mention later. So the overview of the main issues that contributed to not completing all the planned work are, I would say that they consist of two parts. The first one is the understanding of how Jenkins works. So by that I mean when I needed to create to complete the project, that was oftentimes quite difficult to understand the structure of this specific Jenkins system, especially as a new developer. That was sometimes hard to follow the flow of the processes that were happening in Jenkins. And I would say that the most time I spent on Jenkins was due to the this understanding and learning and reading the code and the wiki pages, and so that took quite a lot of time. And the second part.
Now that you actually spend that time, any chance you can leave some of your your hard-earned discoveries into documents or some sort of records, so that the others that will follow would benefit from your labor?
You mean the wiki and the documentation?
So if I understand you correctly, you said, I think you said it has been difficult to kind of understand how things are put together, how it works. And then you have to look at the code, you have to look at the wiki pages, you have to scrape everything you can to get that understanding. So that's a very valuable hard-earned knowledge. So I was just wondering if if you can leave some of that record, so that as a documentation or in some form, so that the others in the future that would follow you wouldn't have to go through the exact same effort that you've done.
Yeah, certainly. I think that would save time. I think I can find some areas where there is not so much documentation exists, yet I can write something. Yes. All right, and then the second part was understanding how Jenkins should work, meaning that how my projects should work and how they should be implemented. So sometimes, even after I would understand how how I should implement the project, I would not implement it incorrectly, and so that also would take quite some time to reiterate. For example, this library for the pop-up was initially agreed as a good one, but later, according to the new feedback, that should be replaced by another one. And the future work, yes, as I said, this replacement of the remodel library is a third-party library which can be used by one which is already present in Jenkins. Then there were quite a few comments on help editor plugin implementation. So actually one of the I would say advantages of the help editor plugin is that it does not have changes in core, and so it is kind of more flexible to the changes. And however, there were some suggestions, for example, to have XML structure instead of storing the separate files. And finally, of course, tests. I think there are important ones, and certainly should be added for the better functionality and for reliability. That's mostly it. So here are the links to the my work submission post on Jenkins Dev group. then 2 pull requests to Jenkins core, and then finally the help editor plugin, which is now Jenkins UI. All right, I think that's basically it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Samad. So there is one question from KK here regarding help editor plugin, I suppose. So the question is that so that nodes are more discoverable than, and is there a way to see the edited help without pressing the question icon?
Well, currently these help files are stored in the Jenkins in folder. So without web UI, you probably can't see it. You can change it directly as a file, and that will work completely fine. But other than that, I think no, since the JavaScript sends the AJAX requests and receives it after that.
Right. Yeah. Maybe I wasn't clear in the question. So I assume that the intended use case for this feature is as a person who is configuring this job, I can leave some, some note about why I did, I set this value the way it is. Like, not like things, for example, things like note to myself, come back in 2 weeks after I did this and then set them back or something. So if that was the use case, I thought it'd be nice to be able to see these nodes, without remembering to press that help icon. So I was just wondering if, that was possible, or you have thought about that.
So you mean to indicate that the custom help is present, or?
Yeah, exactly.
No, I do not think about. Maybe it is possible to, since it is clear which help information has some custom help and which does not. So maybe it's possible somehow like visually indicate, maybe like somehow change a color, or add some visual change if the file is different.
Daniel asked to clarify the question, the responsibility. So this help manager configuration isn't being so these help files have been configured on the global level. So they have been configured for particular class, etc., not for particular job instance.
I got it. Understood.
So actually, it could be another useful feature. Actually, I wanted to also ask several questions and maybe discuss future work. So during the planning for this help editor plugin, we were discussing integration with job config history. And we were also discussing support of markup editors, which would allow to use a different syntax and add limitations. So maybe somebody you could clarify some of these ideas to other people listening to the meetup.
Well, yeah, we were talking about the addition of the markup. So initially, that was considered as a better way to have the markdown formatting for the help instead of the usual HTML. And it seems that that should not be particularly difficult, since as I understand, if I understand correctly, there is a plugin that does just that. And so maybe on relying on such plugin, on integrating this plugin, maybe the markup of the of this text may be changed from HTML to this GitHub-like markdown. So does that answer the question?
Yes, it answers the question. So maybe you could show a short demo if you have a ready environment.
Well, I can launch it right now.
Okay.
But mostly, yeah, the plugin works as showed on the presentation that the files are created in this folder in Jenkins Home.
Mm-hmm.
And then if, so also suggested during the last weeks that it is better not to load the help files each time when a user clicks on this help button, but load all the files immediately at the start into cache, and only if the user changes the help, only then to send the AJAX request and edit the corresponding help. But otherwise, it doesn't send AJAX requests each time, only the first time.
Right. And so if I recall correctly, the last implementation of this plugin used to display two different help windows, right? So you maintain the original window, I mean original build help, and on the top of it you provide your own help, right?
Yes, that the default help is not changed at all, and the custom help is just displayed additionally inserted the JavaScript inserts HTML above it.
Yeah, so from the admin perspective, sometimes I really want to rewrite help for existing options and not only for translations, but there are also a common case when you have to adjust recommendations for your instance specific use cases. So maybe if you could somehow modify existing help, it would be a very useful addition to the feature.
All right.
So, are there any other questions? So someone is opening his instance now. So, Kirill, would you like to say something about the project while Samat handles with the demo?
Yep, I can. I'm glad to say that Samat done a great work about some very useful for me features, and for I think many other peoples who creates new jobs with mouse clicks and not with new pipeline styles plugins. And Samat done this very interesting and very eye-catching way. Also, the feature about help editor plugin is a very good idea to be implemented, and this is really a very useful feature for most of admins who maintains his own installations of Jenkins.
Okay, thanks for the feedback. Samat, so
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, now I'm loading again. Just my computer. Are there other questions, by the way?
No, I think that's it.
Yeah, I have one question regarding the expected release date for the final version of Help Editor plugin. What would be your estimation?
I'm not sure. I think we did not discuss like so there are several comments that I would like to fix, but I don't know. Is it enough to release the plugin completely if the provided comments are fixed, or there are some additional issues?
Actually, it makes sense to discuss it together. As a plugin maintainer, you can actually release it at any moment when you feel it's good enough. Okay. Maybe other people interested in the plugins, including people attending this presentation, would like to provide a feedback regarding the current beta version. And if you provide such feedback, Samat will be able to respond to it and maybe to make some changes in the implementation.
All right. So, can you see the screen?
Yes.
So yeah. So here's the job configuration page, and we can open the relevant page. So here's this file corresponds to the help information for the first question mark. And so if we change it should automatically change here also, right? So as you can see, that was changed in the file system, and then it is stored for the other users. However, if we change some other description, and let's see.
Could you please show an example with several HTML tags?
All right.
And it would be just useful to see.
So here.
Nice.
All right. So that basically allows for simple structuring and the styling of the help information. However, yeah, I think putting the GitHub-like markdown like that would be a bit more.
Right. And if Jenkins admins feel really brave, I suppose they can even try to write JavaScripts in this window. I'm not sure what exactly it's going to change, but yeah, potentially they can do it. And does this help also work for other configuration pages, for example, for global configuration or for node settings?
I think not yet. I think so. So far, that sounds like for job configuration, but I hope that it's not that the same principle may be used for the other pages also.
Okay. That's nice. So, are there any other questions? Seems no, I do not see any questions in chats as well. So if anybody wants to ask something, you can always follow up with speakers. So Alex has shared a link to the Gitter chat where we discuss the topics. I suppose that Samat also could offer some communication ways. So what would be the best way, Samat?
Yeah, sure. So you can always write on Jenkins Dev Forum in the topics or on GitHub. So yeah, I think GitHub would be the easier way. Or
Okay.
on RC, sure.
Yeah, nice. So I think that's all. If you have any other feedback regarding the meetup, please feel free to comment in the meetup page on meetup.com. And yeah, thanks a lot for participating in this session. And of course, thanks a lot to Samat, to Alex, and to their mentors. So I think this is the end of JSOC project on this year. There will be several discussions later, but yes, I think the main part is done, and it was a really great experience for Jenkins project, and we hope that the contributed features will be useful to the community.
All right, congratulations, everyone.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, also I'd like to thank to my mentors, Oleg and Martin, who helped me a lot in achieving this project. Yeah, I can say that it was a great experience.
Samat, would you like to say something?
Yeah, also thank you to the mentors and to others. So, for example, Daniel Beck also helped, even though initially he was not my mentor. So yeah, also mentors did help a lot.
Okay. So I think that's all. So see you in the next sessions of Jenkins Online Meetup. The next session will be on September 6th. We are going to talk about Jenkins plugin development, in particular web UIs. Daniel will talk about plugin development based on classic stack like Steplet, Jelly, and Groovy forms. And after that, Tom finally will talk about modern Jenkins UIs based on JavaScript. Today, Samat presented several examples, and there will be much more examples at the next meetup. That's all from me.
All right. See you soon. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.